My first question is, does anyone in the world call you Tom, or are you Thomas to everybody?
I am Tom with an H, actually. A lot of people call me Tom. There was a moment I think maybe in the 2000s where I think people just got really lazy with two-syllable names, and I became Tom.
Works for me. Well, I'll call you Tom with an H for now, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Adverse is the new movie. When was it filmed? You can't look at it and go, man, that is so 2018 or anything like that. No idea.
It was something that we started in 2018. We did shoot it for 22 to 25 days or something like that. It wasn't all consecutive. We were dealing with a lot of schedules with a lot of different notable talent. So some of the time, we had to, abide by their schedule. Plus, I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, there's a couple of pickup shots that we did in, I want to say, even in 2019, maybe at the end of it, and I want to say even before lockdown. I feel like we did one additional shot. We had premiered at Fantas Porto in Portugal,
Hmm.
February, which is a pretty notable festival. Maybe not known widely amongst like the general audience, but
Amongst the nerds, we know that.
yeah, Bong Joon Ho premiered the host there. Coen Brothers premiered No Country for Old Men. Guillermo del Toro premiered Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
We were the opening night film, which was the same honor that they had. So we were so stoked that we went to Portugal for the event, and we got our first film critic review, and we saw like the reaction. Granted, it was with a translated film, but we made massive changes after that, because a film and art is never really done until you release it. So the
Hmm.
film will officially be done on March 9th, though there was even a slightly different cut that was in theaters than what you'll see on VOD. So Brian A. Metcalf used to work with all the major studios. He goes, Marvel does this all the time. I'm like, but we're not Marvel. But he's like, we can't stop. We must change everything all the time.
Sure. Sure. Well, it is a pretty star-studded film, present company included and all that. And you, of course, have a producer's credit on it, which I do want to ask you about. But when you first got the script, was it already star-studded?
No, I mean, I've worked with Brian A. Metcalf before, and so when I got to read the first draft of the film, I absolutely was enamored and wanted to play Ethan. Brian didn't really feel 100% confident that I was going to be able to pull off what he had envisioned for the character. So we worked through a series of what I would call work sessions where I was sort of proving my worth to play this character, and we were digging through the background of him and building him from the ground up, and what we would and deciding how we would change my look and how I would move and how I would speak and sound and all these things. And only after a few weeks did Brian finally go, okay, I think, this can be something that you can do. And at that point, it was Brian, Kelly Arjun, who's our other producing partner, who plays Mia, Ethan's sister. It was the three of us that started it out. So we didn't have anyone on board at that point by the time Ethan was already kind of brought to life.
So you proved the writer director wrong. We can safely say, and you are what helped draw all those other stars to the movie. So credit goes to Tom two ways on that one. And I read that you got to join the Producers Guild because of your participation in that film. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had produced to the same capacity before, but I think it was the idea that, I put so much work into this character that I just wanted to delineate that it wasn't a vanity title, and that also I wasn't just producing to hire myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to differentiate and show that each one had their own validity. Of course, there's a part of me that hopes that the performance in the film, my performance, speaks for itself, in the sense that you don't think like, oh, there goes Tom just hiring himself again because he's it knows his own phone number.
Well, writing and producing are not your only creative outlets. People who really pay attention know that you're also a musician and a songwriter, and you've been on soundtracks. But how did the co-write with Blues Traveler happen?
That was a pretty crazy one, actually. I was at first um, had the opportunity, or I was told that I might have the opportunity, and would I be into it? And you know, my first 5 CDs that I owned in 1994 were Nirvana, Green
Or
Day, Weezer, Spin Doctors, and Blues Traveler.
yeah,
So I, of course, was like, yeah. And they said, okay, well, it's between you and OAR. If OAR says yes, because they were doing the Blow Up the Moon album is a collab album
yes,
where they worked with Hanson and Jewel and 303
Dirty
and,
Heads. Yeah, great roster.
exactly.
Yeah,
So it was like, if OAR says yes, you're out. And they go to New York. If they say no, they'll be in LA at Dave Grohl's Studio 606, and you can go right with them. So OAR said yes, so I was out. Then I get another phone call 3 days later. Hey, we're going to New Orleans for a private gig. We're going to be doing some retracking on some stuff. Could you be in New Orleans tomorrow? I was like, what time? So I flew to New Orleans, partied with John Popper, which is not an easy feat considering I'm 5'7.25" and he is not. And going drink for drink with a guy that size proved to be not a smart idea. And so the song we wrote was pretty much whatever I could actually make sense of from my fingers and my singing at that point. And then with the world's worst hangover, we recorded the basic tracks for it the next day in New Orleans. And lo and behold, at the end of it, I'm pretty sure that OAR did not end up on the album, but I did.
I believe you're correct about that one. Well, all that said, do you see yourself as a musician who acts to pay the bills, or is just music something you kind of have to do creatively and it's on the side?
Man, when I started out, playing music was a creative outlet. I really enjoyed it, and it definitely kept me sane in between my acting jobs. Um, you know, there's what is it, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but writing music kept me out of, you know, rehab, so to speak. So sex, drugs, and rock and roll saved me from sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And then there was a moment where it sort of started to take shape
Hmm.
and become something, and that wasn't until much later, until about 2008. So I started playing in 94. I recorded 3 albums, 97, a couple EPs in the early 2000s, but it wasn't until 2008 that I wrote some songs that really had the sound that I thought, wow, I really like this. I'm proud of this. I think I could shop this. So I delved into like making, similar to Adverse, an all-star album. Bruce Kulick from Kiss played on it. Chris Chaney from Jane's Addiction played on it. I wrote songs with them. Wrote songs with Dan Lavery from Tonic. I mean, you name it. John Corabi sang backup vocals, on a song.
Don't worry, I know who John Corabi is, and
Yeah.
when I
So
interview you, I'm going to talk to you for 20 minutes about Bruce Kulick, my Facebook friend. So I think our influences are on the same page and all that. Do you have more music in the works at the moment?
I do, yeah. So I mean, so basically, I did that album, spent like an arm and a leg doing it, and then the music industry took like a nosedive,
Sure.
and that was when I looked at Brian Virtue, my co-producer and engineer, and I said, "Well, what do I do now that I can't shop this around to get a record deal?" And he goes, "You tour." So 700 and some odd shows later and 6 albums later, I am virtually doing it via Patreon. I've got 44 consecutive Sunday Fun Day gigs under my belt since the beginning of lockdown. And my 6th single of album 7, man, that's a tongue twister, drops on March 9th, the same day that Adverse is hitting streaming.
Well, 3 quick questions, and then you're a free man being mindful of your time. First one is stupid, but as somebody who grew up watching your movies, of course, did you ever have a conversation with Luke Edwards and talk about how Little Big League was kind of not as good as Rookie of the Year?
No, the conversation that we had was so we actually met. I think, uh, gave an award together, maybe at the Family Film Awards. I think it's the two of us. I don't know. I have this like vague recollection. There's probably like a picture of it online or something. Luke might have even actually remembered this before I did, but we were talking on set about how we often got mistaken for the other.
Right.
So, we would be at a thing and be like, "Oh man, I loved you." Like to me, "You were so great in Little Big League," or to him, "Luke, I loved you in Rookie of the Year." And how we got it so often, and it would even be like Angels in the Outfield as well, or Sandlot. Like, because there's Sandlot, Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield, Little Big League, 4 baseball kids films, and people would just intertwine them. And Luke and I both agreed that after years of hearing it, we just go with it. So my favorite reaction now is if I'm standing with a friend and someone tells me they love me in the kids baseball film and they name the wrong one, I don't correct them and I just watch my friend's reaction to see. And I kind of like just hold, like, it's okay. Just let it be. You're going to confuse them if you try to tell them the right name of the movie. Just roll with it.
Well, that is the best answer I could have possibly gotten. And my closing question here is, do you have a TV show that you could recommend to somebody who needs a new show to start?
Ooh, a TV show to recommend. The most recent one that I'm looking forward to season 2 of is Lupin, which I actually watched in its original French with subtitles, though you can watch it dubbed. I remember like turning it on and I was like, I thought this was a French one. And I was like, oh, they automatically do it for you based upon your region. But that was a really fun one, and I liked. I like that the concept of that. It reminds me of shows that I really enjoyed growing up, like The Pretender, or Quantum Leap, where you've got like this sort of scenario with an overlying goal of what the main character is trying to do, but he's constantly like sidewinded by these little mini challenges that he has to get through.
Great
Have,
pick. Thank you.
have you watched Lupin? Do you agree, or
That comes up on the must watch soon kind of list. So I think you've just jumped at about 4 Q spots. So thank you for that one.
you're
And
welcome.
and thank you for your time. Looking forward to seeing everything that's coming next for you. And also congrats on just keeping up that great. What was the name of the series again that you had 44 Sundays in a row on?
Oh, so it's Sunday Fun Day. So I've got a
Sunday Fun Day.
Patreon. So at Tin Band is my handle online. That's for, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. So there's also, not that I'm not busy enough. I have another side project and another Patreon called The Robot Kid, where I'm actually got my kids involved. So I'm singing with my 2 kids. My son is 9, my daughter is 4. And we're making music for kids. We've got an animator working on the first cartoon. And so that will be launching soon. And, my son is following in my footsteps. He's got a small role in Adverse. He plays Matt Ryan's son. Matt Ryan is, of course, Constantine. And so we had a nice moment together in the show, in Adverse, but it got cut where we actually had like a face-to-face, but now you can just kind of see him through the door window and you see him sort of like acting in the other room. I jokingly, after the Super Bowl, called my business partners, Brian A. Metcalf and Kelly Argent. I said, we should have given Nolan a bigger part. Nolan is, of course, in M. Night's movie Old that Universal's putting out into theaters on July 23rd. So lots of busyness in this household.
You're doing it. That's the key. So thank you so much for your time yet again, Tom with an H, and just keep up all the greatness you're doing, man.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Darren. Thank you for having me.
Paltrocast.